Good morning, everybody. Welcome to using technology and storytelling to create immersive marketing experiences. Uh, my name is Matt Gibson, and I'm going to be doing the first part of our presentation today. This presentation was brought to you and organized by the Professional Travel Bloggers Association. So if you're not familiar with it, the Professional Travel Bloggers Association is an association, a membership association that's made up of both travel influencers and travel industry. I'm right now the outbound president of the Travel Bloggers Association. Amanda here is going to follow me. She's the next president. And the Travel Bloggers Association's mission is to help industry and influencers work together better by providing information on best practices, education, and networking opportunities, and by speaking at events like this to help people learn more about how they can work with influencers. So that's going to be a part of what we're talking about today. So like I said, I'm the outbound president of the Professional Travel Bloggers Association. I'm also the CEO of a company called Upthink, which is a marketing agency, and one of our specialties is helping companies to work with influencers. And I am a travel photographer and blogger, which I've been doing for about 8 or 9 years. I was one of the people who started a long time ago, before there was Facebook or anything like that, before we knew how to get traffic to websites. Here is Amanda. She is the next president of the PTBA. She's also the owner of Marrakesh Food Tours, a tour company which she markets through her blog Morocco Mama, which is a very successful blog on Morocco. And we have Elena Nikolova, who is the editor of MuslimTravelGirl.com. She's also a Muslim millennial travel expert and the first chartered Islamic marketer in the UK. So we're going to talk to you today a little bit about technology and how it is used to tell stories, which are used for marketing destinations and marketing services and travel. So this is going to be a little bit different from some of the other talks I've given, and I'm kind of excited by that because we're going to go into some parts of technology that don't get discussed very much. This is going to be pretty different from other things you've heard about storytelling. We're going to start by doing an overview of how technology has changed the way we talk about travel over the past decade. From before the internet, before social media, before Facebook, how it changed with the advent of the internet up until now, what's happening with the current trends in technology right now, and what we can expect to happen over the next decade, and where it's going to go, which is actually going to change probably a lot more than we saw in the past 10 years. So if it freaked you out when the internet came along and destroyed all of your old business plans, it's going to get worse. It's going to change a lot more coming up, which is the part that excites me to talk about, because there's a lot of opportunities in that change. So the first thing I want to talk about is something called Moore's Law. Moore's Law is a law that was developed by the founder of Intel, the guys who make the chips that go in your computer that run the processors. In 1965, he noticed that the number of transistors per square inch on a microchip was doubling every single year. So the number of transistors on these microchips was increasing exponentially. If in the first year there was 1, in the second there was 2, then there was 4, 8, 16, 32, and it was growing at a crazy fast pace, which means the speed and the power of the technology that we were using was increasing at an exponential rate. And that's what's happening right now. That hasn't stopped. Technology has continued to move at that pace. And that's why it's probably going to change more in the next 10 years than it did in the past 10 years. What we're going to see coming up is technology is going to start changing faster and faster and faster and faster. And if you thought it was hard to keep up with the internet and social media, it's going to get even harder to keep up as we move forward, which is why I really want to talk about what's coming next. So As things speed up, we're going to find that knowing what's coming and staying ahead is key to succeeding. And we can't all be experts in this, though, right? This is something that's a full-time job to keep up with. So key to success is going to be working with the early adopters of new technology. And the reason why the PTBA likes this topic is because bloggers and social media influencers are early adopters of new technology. They are the people who figured out how to make a website earn money and to make a publication make money online when newspapers and magazines couldn't, and still are having a lot of trouble. When they couldn't do it, these early adopters of the technology took it, they got really creative with it, and they figured out how to make it work. We're going to find that that's going to be the case time and time again as new things come out and new technologies come out. You're going to want to find these people who are figuring them out first, who are using them creatively, and ask them to help you with your problems in your business. So, how tech has changed travel. Is anyone familiar with this expression, the medium is the message? It comes from a media professor, Marshall McLuhan, in the 60s. He said this. And his point was exactly what we're talking about today. That what we are saying is actually, it's shaped so much by the medium that we're using to say it, that the medium is more powerful than what we're using it to say. For example, I think that 5 years ago, it would have been really hard to imagine that the President of the United States would make all his most important announcements in 140 characters or less, because the platform that he uses for that limits it to that. And that's kind of bizarre, and it's mind-warping, and it's strange, but that's true, and that's the world we live in, where if you want to broadcast something to everybody who's online, it has to be 140 characters or less. Formerly, not now, but if you wanted to broadcast a photo to the most people you could get online, it had to be a square because Instagram would only publish a square. Okay? So the technologies we're using are really shaping the way we discuss things. They're shaping these conversations. So what we've seen in the past 10 years, pre-internet, we had media. When people were talking about travel, they had two ways to communicate about it. That's it. They could talk to people face-to-face or on the telephone. They could talk to their friends about their travels. Or they could interact with traditional media, a newspaper, a magazine, or a television. Those were the only two sources of information that were available about travel, and that's the only way that that information was exchanged between people. Next, we had the advent of the internet, where online research began to become a thing. So you had a proliferation of blogs and websites providing information. And this morphed slowly into what we called Web 2.0, where it became a two-way conversation, where on a website, there would be a comment section. This was the first time in history that you could talk back to your publication that you were reading. So now you have a new change in the way that we're talking about travel. It's a little more two-way. You're still kind of like taking it in only, but you could answer back a little bit. Then we had crowdsourced reviews, which was probably one of the biggest changes, as we all know how important TripAdvisor is to your business and the way people perceive your business. That changed things enormously. And then finally, the last stage we've had so far is social media and social media recommendations, which is what we're finding is incredibly important for marketing your business, is people seeing what their friends and family are talking about on social media and asking them questions and having these conversations. Influencers are part of this. They just talk with more people than others do. So that's where we are now. That's what's happened really in a decade, basically. And that's a lot. The next 10 years, there is going to be even more. So in a minute, I'm going to tell you what we can expect to happen which is kind of freaky, and it scares me because it actually blows up everything that I've spent the past 10 years working on. But first, I want to take a minute to look at a couple examples where early adopters of some of these new types of communications really, really succeeded because they did it first and they did it creatively, which is going to be key when we're looking at the future. So the first one is TripAdvisor. Now, as we all know, TripAdvisor, when they came out, exploded. And now they're probably the most important source of information, or probably the most used source of information on the internet, where people look for information about specific travel purchase decisions. Who here has a business that's listed on TripAdvisor? Oh, come on, guys. So, TripAdvisor, I was told, I have a client who has an app that's trying to monetize in a way similar to TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor, I have been told, earns about 40 cents for every visitor that lands on their website. It's insane. And that's millions and millions and millions of visitors per month. This is what being creative with a new type of technology can do. All they did was take that comment system that you used to see on websites at the bottom of the articles, and they just made that the point. The article wasn't the point anymore. The point was the comment section. And they just made that a bigger priority than it used to be. That's all that really is. Then social media was one step further, where there was no article to begin with. It was just a giant comment section where people were talking to each other. So the second one I want to tell you about, you're probably not as familiar with. Has anyone here heard of Vail Resorts? Okay. I'm a big skier and snowboarder. Vail Resorts is the biggest owner of ski resorts in the United States and in North America. They own Vail, being one of the biggest, and several other of the really big ones. So they created an app called Epic Mix back when Facebook was just getting started. This is one of the smartest things I've ever seen somebody do with social media. So I think that it's fairly commonly understood now that the more powerful than what you say on social media, or what you say to your followers, or what you pay other people to say to their followers, is what people say to each other on social media, what they communicate about their experience when they're with your brand, when they're talking about your hotel, or your tour company, or your destination. So before Epic Mix, there was this standard thing that people used to do at ski hills. A local photographer from the town would set up a booth at the bottom of the hill. And they would go stand out on the hill in the nicest places, wherever there was a really nice view with their camera. And you could just stop and they'd take your photo. At the end of the day, if you wanted that photo, you could go down to the bottom of the hill and go to the booth, and that photographer would sell you your photo for $10 or something like that. And it was a fairly popular thing. When Vail Resorts looked at this situation and came up with this app, it changed everything. They took that model where people were paying for their photos and they turned it on its head. So they created this app. Now, this app does many things. It gamifies your day on the hill. It tells you how many vertical feet you did. You get awards if you go do this many feet or take this many lift rides in a day. But what they did that was really, really amazing was they put their own photographers out on the hill. They got rid of the local guys. They hired photographers, put them at all the most beautiful places. If you're familiar with Heavenly at Lake Tahoe, there's a ski hill above Lake Tahoe with the lake in the background. It's a really beautiful spot. They'd have a photographer there with the lake in the background. You could just stop and have your picture taken. The photographer would then scan your ski pass, and your ski pass would be connected to the Epic Mix app on your phone. So at the end of the day, instead of going down to the bottom of the hill to buy your picture of you standing in front of the beautiful blue lake on the sunny blue day with a big smile on Lake Tahoe, they would just send you those photos through the app. They would appear on your phone at about 5 p.m., and it would appear with an option, do you want to share this with your friends? Suddenly, every single person who ever stopped to get a picture taken on any of Vail Resort's hills was having their picture shared on Facebook, Twitter, social media with people's friends. And they were happy to do it. They were like, thank you, Vail Resorts, for giving me that photo of me standing in front of the lake that I could share with my family and friends. And Vail Resorts was like, no, thank you for marketing us after you paid for our lift tickets. It was brilliant. This is what happens when we get really creative with new technologies and try to harness the power of people telling their own stories. So there's so many ways that new technology is changing the way we're telling stories, right? You look at virtual reality. You look at 360 video. You look at podcasts. All these things are changing what we can tell, but we also have these opportunities to change what people are telling to each other. And that's a much more powerful thing. So last, we're seeing Facebook as another early adopter of changing the travel conversation. Has anyone seen this new option that comes up? It's brand new. It's only been out for a couple months, I think. Facebook recommendations, if you write something, just whatever language you're using, you say, hey, I'm going to Abu Dhabi and I'm looking for a restaurant to eat at, Facebook's algorithm will read that and turn it into this giant recommendations map box, which draws more attention to it for your friends to give you recommendations for what to do in Abu Dhabi. So they're jumping in on this too, on the changing the way people are talking about travel trade. So that's where we've got to now, and that's the way people have capitalized on these new changes until now. Here's what's next. This is really creepy. We have, it kind of is. We're going to have machine-based learning, where more and more we're going to find that algorithms, such as Google, are able to learn by themselves what you are looking for and provide better and better and better results, until that's going to start to remove our need to ask our friends and family for recommendations, because the results are going to be that good. I mean, it's already started. We all search for information before we ask our buddy beside us for what he thinks about this particular topic. It's going to increase. We're going to see an increased use of voice interface on a lot of our devices and when we're consuming media. Because why hold a phone when something can talk to you or you can talk to it? And we're going to see an increased use of augmented reality, which is going to really change the way people experience destinations and experience their day-to-day life. So let's start with machine learning and how that's going to work. Machine learning is already being used by Google in its search, okay? Google has come up with an app called Google Trips. Has anybody seen Google Trips? Anybody looked at it yet? Has anybody tried it? How'd you like it? It's pretty good? Yeah. So Google Trips is pretty simple. It's a very, very smart app. You put in a place you're going, you put in your dates, you put in check a few boxes about what you like when you're traveling, and it will create an itinerary for you automatically with travel times included, with the amount of time each activity is recommended to do. That's really smart. And they're excellent itineraries, are they not? Okay. I also have I have a client called Insprach. They have a website that is just doing the same thing. I was recently on a trip in Luoyang, China. I was sitting on a bus full of tour operators, and I was trying to describe to them what this app does. And as you can imagine, one of the tour operators was like getting all like, there is no way this can ever do what we do. He was really upset. And I wasn't trying to convince him this was better than a tour operator at all. I was just explaining what it was, and he got really defensive. And a couple of the other tour operators were like, okay, let's see, what's that website called? Let me take a look and try it out. One of the women was, I think she was from Belarus. So she typed in her hometown, checked a few boxes, and up came an itinerary. And I was genuinely interested. I've tried the app a couple of times, but I really wanted to know what a travel professional thought about the results. And she literally said, that was perfect. Now, I don't think it's better. This is going to really be better than a tour operator. But this is what's going to happen with something like Insprach and something like Google Trips. If Google Trips is on your phone and you have an Android phone, Google Trips and Google are going to know where you go because of your GPS. They're going to know how long you stay in a place because of your GPS. They're obviously going to know what the itinerary was that they recommended. So once they have all this data, this is how Google Maps can tell you where to go because of the traffic, because traffic is bad over here, because they know there's this many cell phones on that road in cars with Google Maps on. They're going to be able to say, okay, we provided this information to this person with this who is looking for this. They went to point A on the itinerary, but they stayed 30 minutes less than we suggested that they do. They went to point B and they stayed for 4 hours instead of 2, so they must have really liked it. And they're going to take this information and it's going to learn to refine its results for the next person who asks for that information. And it's going to get better and more accurate until they're really, really well-refined, usable results that result in a great experience for the end user. And this kind of information technology is really going to start to creep into the suggestions that we ask people for. It's going to become more reliable. We've already seen studies in the past couple months actually coming out where machine learning systems are able to, and this is not just a little bit, they're able to diagnose diseases with a far higher accuracy than most doctors can because they're just able to consider more factors and sift through more information faster. So we're going to start to see this really, really change the way we're looking for information. So the second thing that's going to change a lot is the use of voice interface. We're all familiar with Siri and OK Google, or the new Amazon Echo, which you put in your home that you can talk to ask to do things for you. So this is also going to improve dramatically in the next few years. There's already software out there that is creating machines that can speak to you in a natural way, where you can just have a conversation with it. So if you have an Amazon Echo in your home, or you have Google on your phone, or you have something in your car, and you want to search for information online, you're going to start being able to just say, instead of saying, okay, Google, what's the best restaurant in Dubai? You're going to be sitting in your car, you're going to say, hey, car, what's the best restaurant in Dubai? And your car is going to answer back, oh, it's this place over here. Or your car is going to say, it depends what kind of food you like. What do you want to eat? And you're going to say, oh, I want Chinese. And your car is going to say, there's no good Chinese in Dubai. Let's try something else. Or whatever. And it's going to get that good and that useful. And that's going to change the way we interact with the internet. And this freaks me out because a lot of what we do is based on people looking at websites. All of our advertising is based on people looking at a website and seeing an ad that's beside the words that they're looking for. If they're talking to them, that's not going to work anymore. It's over. Now, websites aren't going to die, of course. That's not going to end. But using voice interface technology is really going to eat away at the amount of time we spend looking at screens, which I think is actually probably a really good thing. Why hold a phone? Why look at a computer when you could just talk to your Echo, or you could talk to your car? The last thing is, augmented reality. Now, this one looks a little bit more Star Trek-y, and we haven't seen it get to this point yet. This is sort of a idea of what Google Glass was supposed to be, but Google Glass was a massive failure. However, it's probably still going to pick up in the future. What they didn't do is they just didn't do it right the first time. Whether or not people want to see this overlay over what they're looking at in their daily life is questionable. You're probably not going to want to see this all the time. But what will happen is you're always going to have the option to see this if you want to see this. And we're going to start consuming a lot of our information this way. This also, again, is going to detract from the amount of time we spend looking at websites or looking online or searching on Google or looking at Google Maps on our phone or whatever, because it's going to be here instead of there, which again is going to take away from all of the traditional ways we've thought about advertising online. That's just not going to work anymore. And I mean, Google's making this happen, and they're going to ruin their own ability to capitalize on search results when people are clicking on their paid links. So the end game of all of this, when we're talking about augmented reality, Google Glass was a failure, but there have been successes. This was probably the biggest one. This is a really great use of augmented reality and somebody who adopted the technology early and capitalized on it. And this one, though, is probably a better one for travel. Have you seen this Google Translate app? Has anyone here tried this? It's pretty amazing, right? You just look through your phone's camera at a sign in another language, and it will read that and translate it to your language. I was using it in China 2 weeks ago. It's crazy. Like, it's the future. People are also working on instant translators that you can literally talk to like a microphone. So this is going to change travel. It's going to open up travel. It's going to make travel so much more accessible. But it's going to change everything about the way we communicate about travel as well, just like the internet did 10 years ago. So what I can't tell you is how you can capitalize on it. I don't know that. I'm just telling you what's coming. So the end game of all of this is that we're going to probably have augmented reality glasses or contact lenses which you can speak to and which can speak back to you or display the information in front of you, whichever you prefer. That's how we're going to interact with the internet most of the time, rather than just looking at phones or looking at tablets. That's going to be the majority of the way we find and consume information about everything, including travel. So, there's a couple of things we can do. Like, this is getting really far into the future. We're talking in the next 10 years, we're going to get to this. So, based on some of these things, like, I really want to highlight the fact that we have to be ready for that, because that's what's going to happen. And we need to be thinking about that and keeping that in the back of our mind. But based on this, here are some suggestions for what you guys can do today if you want to walk out of here and make some positive changes to the way you're using technology to market your business through storytelling. Okay, 1, you can optimize your website for audio. Now, you can do SEO for audio so that these voice-activated searches are more likely to pick up your website than they are your competitors. That is still an open field for competition. Not a lot of people are doing it. It's a place where you can be one of the early adopters. Also, and I really think that this is worth considering, consider the audio content that you could add to your website. If you're about to get on a flight, or if I'm about to get into the car to drive to work, and I was looking for information about traveling to Hong Kong, if this website has an audio file of some kind I can download and turn on, I can listen to it when I'm driving my car to work, or when I'm doing the laundry or doing the dishes. Now, there's all sorts of different content that could be, but the key being that it's going to be in a way that you can digest that you can't digest when you're using your hands to look at a phone. If you want to have your hands free, something's got to be audio. And I think we all really need to consider what kind of content you would want people to reach when they're doing other things about your destination or about your service, your product, and how you can use that to capitalize on time that other people aren't. That hands-free time. Right now, everyone who's marketing online is marketing to a person whose hands are on a keyboard or whose hands are on a phone. You can reach people who aren't, who are just listening to something while they're driving to work. You can optimize your business for social sharing. This one I love talking about. It's really simple. It's really similar to that epic mix thing that we talked about. Every hotel, every tour provider, everybody can do this. Every restaurant. You can train your employees. This is especially great for tours. Give your employees a smartphone. Train them the basics of photography, just the basics, and then teach them, make sure they know where on your tour or where in your hotel or on your property are the best places to take photos of your customers. And give them that phone or give them that smart camera so that they can do it. So that they can, when they're taking people around, taking them on a city tour, they can be like, here's a really nice spot. Do you guys want to have a picture? And get those pictures. Make sure they just know how to get a good photo. So that at the end of the day, they can turn on the Wi-Fi on that smart camera. All of your customers can log on to that Wi-Fi network and download all the pictures from the smart camera. And then they're free to go share those photos of your tour company's tour on Facebook. It's a really simple thing you can do that can really get people talking about your business and their experiences with your business in an authentic way that will reach other customers who are really similar to them, their friends and their family. So, and please don't forget, I can't stress this enough, when you're thinking about how to adopt new technologies, think about working with early adopters. Not everybody can be an expert. You have a lot more things to worry about than what you're going to do when Google Glass comes out with a new app or something like that. But you can find the blogger or the social media influencer or the person who is near you, who reaches your audience, who is always staying up to date on these things, who is adopting the new technologies as soon as they come out. And you can work with them and talk with them and build a relationship with them so that you can get their ideas. And those are going to be the people who are going to be really valuable when you're thinking about the future. And fortunately for us on stage, we have two of those exact people, Amanda and Elena, who have been working at the forefront of new technology and digital media for years and years and years. So they're both going to talk to us about a little bit about experiences that they've had with the way new technology is interacting with travel in the places that they're most familiar with and how it's changing the conversations there. So first is going to be Elena. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Right. So we talked about the future. Now I'm going to take you a step back from the future. And we're going to talk about a place that not many people can visit, but it has a lot of mystery for many. And to me, personally, it's a great passion, and I talk a lot about on social media and on my website about it. And that is Umbra. So for those who are Muslims, they probably know what Umbra is. For those who are non-Muslims, how many don't know what Umbra is? Okay, perfect. So an Umbra is a religious pilgrimage done by Muslims in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. It is a non-mandatory one, because we have a mandatory one, which is the Hajj. And you can usually do it not any time of the year. If you're doing only Umrah, it's about 9 months of the year that you can do it. However, the difference is that Saudi Arabia doesn't allow tourism. And usually we just see overview photos of what an Umrah looks like. If you are in your hotel room, you'll probably see a channel that has the Umrah live, where you will see people actually performing it live. However, what we don't see is, what does it really look like for people, for those who are going and performing it. And one of the reasons why I really like talking about Umbra is to demystify that. Now, we have to remember that Umbra is a religious pilgrimage. It is something you do in a religious setting, and you have to be respectful. And we do have quite a few restrictions when it comes to storytelling and showing them what it is to non-Muslims. And of course, you have to respect the privacy of those, because one of the issues we have is you can't start taking photos of everyone while they're praying or while they're in their most vulnerable moments, doing something that they've been expecting. And some of them might do it for 1 year, once in their lifetime. Also, you have to remember that you have many, many different cultures. Muslims are not homogeneous. We come from different backgrounds, different cultural experiences. So it's important to know how to be sensitive to those issues. Umbra in technology. So as I said, I love using technology, and I love using the medium of social media to show people, Muslims and non-Muslims, what Umbra is all about. For non-Muslims, I have a lot of people who love seeing the photos and seeing what it is, because we don't always see what true Muslims in the media look like in terms of their daily experiences. And for non-Muslims, it inspires them to actually go and visit this holy place and to be part of that environment. And a very good example is in 2015, there was a Snapchat story about Mecca Live, where social media and Snapchat were at the forefront of Muslims sharing their experiences under the hashtag Mecca Live to what it is really to be a Muslim at that time in Mecca, praying or doing different rituals and having fun and just talking to friends and family and enjoying the time that you are there. And that's the beauty of technology. It can bring people from all over the world together in those settings. Can we see that video? Can I press the video? Okay, right. So it's okay. That is a video I took, and one of the reasons why I took this video is because it shows the cleaners. So we hear that New York is the city that never sleeps. For me, it's actually Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the city that never sleeps. You can find people 24/7 performing religious acts, praying, and connecting to the God. So this shows basically the cleaners of how they clean. And it's amazing because you don't stop the flow of people. You have approximately 6 to 8 million people every year in one place. So you use what's best available to you. So you will see them actually going around as well and just cleaning around the way. So it was very interesting and actually got quite a few views and discussions going about it. Now, what about technology? Being creative, and as a social media influencer and as a person who is passionate about telling the story of Umbra to Muslims and non-Muslims, we have certain restrictions. Technology is used widely for safety reasons. So we have 8 million people a year in a tiny, tiny space because the area is not very big. So safety is number one, and it has been used for safety. However, for storytelling, we do have to be respectful of the environment where we are. So we cannot take drones, for example, there, although I would love to do that. We don't take DSLR cameras. You get pat down before you get into the mosque. So you can't take anything that is big and bulky because it will get confiscated, or they will just send you back to your room to remove it before you get in. Now, for me, as technology evolves, it's perfect because you have to be creative. I'm going in June. I'm taking a 360 camera with me because it's the closest that you can do to giving an overall view. A GoPro, I'm hoping they will be tiny and they, it won't make a big difference to people if I'm taking videos, and always, of course, respectfully so you don't take faces in. Live streams and vlogging has been tremendously amazing, and of course that goes back to the Snapchat because people want to see the actions when they happen. We are drawn to Instagram and Snapchat and the Facebook Live videos that are very popular now to show and share the story with my readers or with everyone who is watching, to be able to do that live. And of course, blogging for me is one of the favorite mediums. Words, pictures, videos combined into one. They work very, very well. And there will be more of that. I'm looking forward to actually using some of the future technologies of Google Glasses or the translation app, because that helps a lot. And I can see it becoming more and more popular. Now, of course, we're talking about a tradition of 1,500 years old. We're talking about a place that is religious. But what happens is that we have 8 million people with a new generation, for example, of millennials who are coming up, and they want to take and bring those experiences with them. So last time we went for Umbra, we had so many people with the selfie sticks. It was the time when we had that craze about selfie sticks and how people want to share their moments with their friends. And yes, phones are allowed in for safety reasons, and because it's impossible to not allow phones. 10 years ago, phones were not allowed in. And if you were seen taking photos, the guards would ask you to actually delete those photos from your phone so you can be respectful to others. But as trends are emerging and as communication is developing, we are starting to see more and more people bringing those opportunities and those devices to Umbra so they can communicate and share their own stories. And the Snapchat, I go back to that because it really showed that people want to show people what it is to be there and to connect and relate to that. And we will see that technology in Mecca is going to progress. Maybe not to the stage where next year I can take a drone with me in, but that's totally fine. But I can see ways of using the technology apps for helping people, virtual reality apps. For people who are in the Umbra business, it will be very important to picking up on those trends, because even 3 years ago when I actually started, there was not much information on social media or on the web that you can go and do an Umbra on your own. They thought that it would be only a package. So it's been a slow process, but we are starting to get more and more of that. And the more people we have that are Muslim social media influencers, the more opportunities we are going to see of how people and Muslims in particular communicate with technology in those areas.
Hi. So I'm going to go a little bit different. So technology is great. Everybody loves technology. I love technology. It's amazing. But at the end of the day, humans and technology are really what the story is about. And I'm going to talk about where those two come together. So can technology solve everything? Matt's talked a lot about what's coming, how things are changing, and to a lot of people, like my kids, they think that at the end of the day, we're going to have our phones or we're going to have glasses or what have you, and we'll lose the human element. I disagree with that. I think that technology is wonderful, but we still have the human element, and no matter what technology evolves to, without building and growing and sharing the human element, a lot of stories won't get told and our destinations won't get shared, and we'll lose a lot of culture along the way. So this is a picture of me with one of the old ladies that we work with, one of the older ladies that we work with in our tour business. And I wanted to share this picture because I work in Morocco, and while we are getting there with technology, we're one of the most connected countries in Africa. For a lot of people, technology is still something that they don't really understand and that they're leery of. So I would say that Morocco, in some places especially, would be considered hostile to technology. Well, you will see lots of young people taking selfies, and everybody has a phone, everybody has a smartphone, everybody's on WhatsApp. In Marrakesh, where I live especially, a lot of tourists complain that it's really hostile and anti-picture taking, which is true. And why is that? So how do you share your destination if you know that the people that are there and the people that you work with and that you live with really don't want their picture to be taken and really don't want to be included in the promotion of your destination? That's where humans come in, and that's why having human connections are important. So this older woman that was back here. She, in our beginning when we started doing our tours, she really didn't want anything to do with the public-facing part of our business, which was fine. I completely respected her wishes and everything. As we got to know her better, as I spent more time with her, as I learned her story, she began to open up and share a lot more with me, which was great because I learned some really amazing, wonderful stories from her. But it also opened it up for her to share these stories with the people that were on our tour and for her to really want to become a part of it. But without that human element, if I would have just come in and said, well, you don't want your picture taken? You don't want to be on video? Well, forget it. Like, I'm not going to do this. That would have never happened. So you have to really bridge the gap between where technology comes in and what you want to do with technology, and also the human element at the end of the day. So some other things that happen, especially in Marrakesh, where I am, is that there's a difference between public versus private life and what's shared and what's publicized, I guess, and also regulations. We have drones are not permitted. Videography is highly restricted. You need to have a lot of licenses. Even if you come in with a more upscale video camera that maybe you're just a private person but you really like videography, it's pretty typical that you would get stopped by the police and asked for your filming permit and what are you doing with this video and why are you taking these pictures, and for it to really be questioned. So for businesses that are working in this environment, if you invest in some decent equipment, you need to go and figure out what the regulations are, and it goes on and on. So there will always be these challenges to technology, especially in regions where maybe they just are a little more hostile to what's shared and how it's shared. So I'm going to go back to the point about building relationships. So I think even with all the technology that's coming, you really need to focus, especially when you're promoting your destination or your business, on trust and the human interaction that you're building between not only your guests, but the people that you're working with and the people in your community. Because that also empowers the local people that you are working with to tell their own stories, which I think is the even more interesting part of doing the work that you're doing. Like, your company is great, but I'm not necessarily going to go home and talk about this hotel that I stayed in. Like, the hotel might have been great, but I'm going to talk about, the guy that I met at the concierge desk who took me to his grandma's house, or who we built this human relationship with. And then I'm going to remember your hotel because of those personal interactions that I had, not because you had a great bathtub. And then build your experiences around that place. So what do you have that it might not even be something that's related. I'll use the hotel example again. I stayed at this very nice hotel in Helsinki, and it was a great experience. But what I really wanted to do was learn how to bake Finnish cinnamon rolls. And so when I shared that, they went out of their way to hook me up with a cafe that was nearby that they were friends with and that they had done business with, and I got to bake cinnamon rolls with a Finnish grandma. And so that experience was something very local to that place, not necessarily about the hotel, but they went a step beyond and built that human relationship. And then I definitely shared that on social media, and I used technology, and I took pictures, and I did a video, and on and on. This is a picture of a guy on that we work with on one of our tours, and he hates his picture being taken. He never lets anybody take a picture, but he let me do this picture because we've formed this relationship, and yeah, so it just goes back to the idea of building relationships. So human-to-human contact has always been the way that people have come together, and making this element is essential in whatever you do. So how do you do this as a business? You've got all this technology, you've got your own marketing, you've got your own sales, you've got all these other things that are going on. So bloggers and storytellers can help you bridge this divide. So here's a story that I told, that I'm telling right now on my website about this little island called Favignana, which is off of the coast of Sicily. And it's a little place. If you go online and you type in Favignana, you're going to come up with like 2 paragraphs about this place. They have a tuna industry. It's a butterfly-shaped island. It was ruled by such and such people. The end. Okay, so I went with my family and I spent a week there, and now I'm telling the story. My great-grandfather left Favignana to sail to the United States. I went back and found my birth certificates of my family members, and spent a week living here, ate the food, did all of these things. So the story that I'm telling about Favignana is a lot more than it's a butterfly-shaped island that they have tuna off the coast. And I've already had a couple friends followers who've come and said, I didn't even know this place existed, but I've got it on my flight search. I'd love to go visit someday. You've really brought this place to life, and it's someplace that I'm really interested in now. So obviously telling those stories is great. Where to find these people is also like a really big question many people have. My first and like best piece of advice for you is to tap into your local resources. So if I'm looking for someplace, let's say Dubai, okay, so look for people who are already in Dubai. Who do you have that are already here? The people that are going to best tell your stories are the ones that are already in the place, who know it, and who are already promoting your destination because they live here. They're already sharing about it. They're already talking about it. And they have a completely different point of view than somebody who you would bring in and who would be here for 2 or 3 days and would walk away and say, oh yeah, you know Dubai. And they'll tell the same story about Dubai that every other person who's come for 3 days tells. So local bloggers and influencers are the best resource you can have. And the reality is very few operators, very few tourism boards, very few hotels, very few people work with local bloggers, work with people that are already in their destination. They look outside immediately instead of looking to what's right in their backyard. Yeah, because we're the ones that have the deeper connections and understanding of that, of place. So that's it. That's what I have. I'm going to hand it back to Matt.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Okay, so we have a few minutes still, and I just wanted to point out, following this is going to be another presentation from the PTBA series. It's going to be led by Shane Dallas. It is about how to make travel videos that will win the internet. He has a panel of some really, really good video creators, vloggers, some of whom are based here in Dubai. If you're looking for Dubai-based vloggers, this is also the place to come because some of these guys are great. So they're going to be up next at 1:10. That said, does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions for anybody here? Yes. Sorry, is there a microphone? Can we get the microphone here? Thank you.
Hello, Shabnam from Iran. Many thanks for your information. I have a question. I would like to know which one of social networking is more popular in tourism industry. For example, Facebook or Instagram. And do you have any statistics about in this case? Thank you.
In general, I think, would you say Instagram? Yeah, it does. It really does depend where you are and who you're looking to reach. So, because region by region, different social networks are more popular. In general, I think just globally in tourism, Instagram is sort of like the favorite thing right now because it's very visual. A picture transcends language. It's not bound by language. Anyone can look at a picture and like it. So it's pretty popular right now in travel marketing in general. But region by region, though, it's going to vary a little bit. Does anybody else have any questions? That's it? All right, well, thank you very much. You've been, oh, sorry.
I have a question from this lady. She talked about Umbra. I would like to know, do you have any information about women, group women travel to Saudi Arabia and go to Umbra? Do you have any information about
So
this?
if I heard right, group for women to go?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that really depends because women are not allowed to go by themselves. So they have to have a male accompanying them, usually father or husband. But there are agencies that after a certain age actually allow women to go. But you have to Google in your own country if you have those agencies that can actually facilitate that for people. So it depends on the country that you are in.
Yeah, I have a question for the last presenter.
Yes, sir.
So what are the tangible benefits of using local travel bloggers for maybe hotels or...
So first, they already have a vested audience, right? Like if you're a place in Morocco, say for me, my audience is already coming to me for information about Morocco. So you already have an audience that's already captivated. They already know that if I want to know about Morocco, I go in and look at Amanda's thing. So that takes a big equation. I mean, you could be a gigantic blogger if you're saying, I want to work with this person because they get 1 million views a month. Well, that's great that they get 1 million views a month, but that doesn't mean you're going to get 1 million views a month and they're coming to that site for your destination. Where when you're working with a local blogger, you already know, and especially if they're writing about your destination. I mean, not all local bloggers write about their destination. But if they're already doing that, then they've already got the audience built in. They also know the area better than anyone else. So if I'm bringing in, so if Elena comes to Marrakesh, which is great, she's awesome, and I'm sure that a lot of her audience would really be interested in Marrakesh. She doesn't know Marrakesh like I do. So she might cover the things that are really more superficial. I'll say, they're more the more touristy things. Where if you're working with me, I already know those things, and I can say, hey, you know what, the Majorelle Garden is really great, but here's 3 other gardens that I know about that are free and are also fantastic because I already live there and I already know it. So you can get to more deeper offerings. Or say, for example, food. If she comes to Marrakesh and she eats it in your hotel, she might think it's fantastic. It's great Moroccan food. But if I go and I'm like, this is not Moroccan food, there's just a different knowledge base that a local blogger is already coming in with.
Okay, so better content creation because you have...
Yeah, you already have the audience. They already know it. You don't have to spend as much time holding their hand because they already are there. And they probably can come up with a lot more creative ideas for you too of different ways to market or promote things.
And I'm sorry, just to follow up on that. So how do you price that?
How do I price that?
So let's say you want to work with a local blogger.
Yeah.
How do you come up with a price for the, I don't know, blog post or video that blogger will be creating for you?
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Not Amanda. Aaron's white paper. Yeah, so the PTBA just published a blog post that's a little bit about pricing and how campaigns are priced. But I would say it's really a case-by-case basis. And if you're interested in that, start the conversation. It's probably a lot cheaper. I mean, I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's probably a lot less than you're thinking it will be.
I just wanted to say something on Amanda's point that actually millennials traveling today to destinations, they want to experience more of the local aspects of the city they're experiencing. So engaging a local blogger helps you promote the business to more of the experiential travelers that are coming, who are usually millennials as well.
Sorry, just for anybody who is, because it is kind of weird pricing and working with influencers, because there's it's always a case-by-case negotiation when you're hiring an influencer. But the PTBA recently did an article, which we're expanding into a white paper. So we surveyed a couple hundred bloggers to find out what they're charging for different services. And so we're going to break down all of that survey, because there's a lot of different things they do, social media promotions and writing articles or whatever. And we're breaking down those responses in a white paper that's going to come out in the next month or 2 months, and you'll be able to find it on the PTBA website here. So anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about what the costs involved are, you'll find it there in the next month or two. There'll be a big white paper about it. Any more questions? Okay, I think we're exactly at time, so we should probably call it a day and let you guys go.